Hey guys, welcome back for the second half of our Drivechains conversation. I don't need to be too long-winded on this one. If you listen to the first half, this is just a straight continuation, no real editing involved. And at the end of this, we actually go through kind of Animal and I give some feedback, kind of our initial feedback on the interview, which I'll be interested to hear if maybe our opinions change over time after this initial one. So, anyway, go ahead and enjoy it. And I've got, I always like to mention Cake Wallet because they do sponsor the show, and they are great partners to have. Go check out the Cake Wallet app in the Apple Store or Google Play Store or online. They got a desktop wallet, buy, sell, trade, use it to spend, all the things we talk about, spend and replace here on the Underground. So enjoy the show and have a good week.
In a lot of these cases, I told Animal I want to talk about, I was going to ask you about Thorchain, because Thorchain to me is this interesting DeFi thing that has a lot of utility for people, right? They can borrow, they can lend. It requires their own token. So maybe that ruins it versus what could be created on a drive chain. But
yeah, of course, like on the totem pole of things, Thorchain is relatively good because they at least are using the token for something where you have to like collateralize things. But yeah, you would not, in the drive chain world, you would either be able to use the L2 to peer into these other L1s, do some kind of SPV proof. I can explain this if people care. But basically, you either program it to swap it just by using the node software, or you can just use as collateral, you could just use the underlying coin, like Litecoin would be the collateral also. It would be the asset and the collateral. And
right.
So basically, the yes, that is an accurate view of it. I just wanted to point out that you can look up like the fees. You can look up like cryptofees.info. There's many sites that point out what are the total altcoin fee revenue, which is like something like 30 times even what the Bitcoin fee revenue. Like in 2022, it was about 3 billion. And in 2022, the Bitcoin transaction fee revenue was like 100 million or something. So it's 1/30th. Even an L1 Bitcoin. So making it up on volume is by far the way to maximize a miner's revenues, I think. I mean, it's theoretically possible that we'll have this 1,000 coin. This is what you have to do, though. So you have to, in order to tell a story where you say it's a good thing that no one can use any side chains or other L2s because that will force the L1 fee rate up to 1,000. You now have to okay, you're multiplying the price by maybe 1,000 or 500. Let's say it was $5 a transaction before. So now to get to 1,000, you multiply by 500. What you're saying is there won't be 500 times as much transacting on the entire L2 stack. Because if you just say, we'll bring the fees back. I mean, what sounds more sustainable to you? A world where we just keep growing the user base and the number of transactions by a factor of 5,000, or a world where you grow the transaction fee by a factor of 500. Sorry, I said 5,000 before. But
yeah.
Is it making sense? Like, I'm just trying to say sorry, it's 200. Can't even do my math.
Yeah, right. You seem like a smart guy and you missed that very basic.
Yeah. Math. So I'm saying it's like $5 per transaction, you multiply by 200. That's one way of increasing the area to a certain size. But then the other way is to just say, we'll have to get to 1,000, you can just say we're going to have 10,000 L2 transactions that pay 10 cents.
One of the most basic things that I find Bitcoiners don't grasp, if we're going to shit on some Bitcoiners, is that fees are paid in Bitcoin. Like, they don't rationalize out that, like, if the price goes up 10x, even to make a most basic transaction is now 10x as expensive. You can't just, and they'll be like, well, you can have millisatoshis or something. Like, that doesn't matter, dude. This is about a certain amount of space on a block, and you got to pay a certain bottom base fee. There's just no.
I kind of think it's a little bit the reverse, where the fee really is paid in fiat or in like hamburgers or something. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, whatever.
The price is adjusted.
Swap it.
So it's when the price goes up. I think a lot of people think that that will be the saving grace for the security budget. They say, oh, the price will go up the price will just keep going up to like $100 million a coin, and then, but that won't affect the transaction fees because the transaction fees are a sacrifice made by the end user. So if they're going to buy a $7 sandwich, the transaction fee can only ever be like 1/5 the cost of a sandwich or something, because that's what people are buying with the payment rail. So
now you understand international settlement, right? Every day they're going to fill this block up with.
Yeah, there's a lot of wishful thinking.
It's so funny to me. You just shake your head. You're like, what? And I also like the idea that your plan is, fees are going to be X amount, whatever, $1,000, because it's going to go to $100 million. And to your point is like, well, what if it doesn't? Let's just play the scenario out that it goes up 5% a year for the next 20 years. What then, right? We can't pin all our hopes on this, the Michael Saylor $50 million or whatever it is.
But that's how you solve the national debt, right? You get a strategic reserve, NGU forever, and then the national debt erase, right? And that's the plan.
It's literally like the.
That was one of the worst things that I ever heard at the con. I was like, don't these people realize that we need the national debt to go up if we want number go up? We want printing. We want printing of the money. And I was like, wow, actually, this paradoxically, Kamala Harris might be the Bitcoin candidate because they're just going to spend. They're just going to go out there and they're going to rack that. They're going to send that national debt. Talk about number go up. We need that number to go up because that's all just printed money. We don't take that in taxes. All the deficit spending is money printing. So
I say it's a lot.
That's what we want. Yeah.
The biggest threat to Bitcoin is a properly managed fiat.
I agree. Yeah, exactly. Right. They're competitors. It's a competition between the U.S. dollar and Bitcoin. So we want U.S. dollar to be like completely mangled. So I don't know. This about paying the national debt, that would take 20 trillion in cash or whatever it is now. I'm sure it's probably that was the last time I looked, which is like years ago.
It's like 35.
30 trillion now. Yeah. Well, yep. So it's 35 trillion out and just delete it basically. That's like very deflationary. Why would we do that? Plus, if we ever did that, the politicians would immediately find some excuse to spend $36 trillion. They'd say, "Oh, we need to, invade the Pacific Ocean," and then they say it's going to cost $36 trillion. So, I think that was a huge these people care about sound money. They care about fiscal responsibility, but they forgot to double check the very last detail, which is now we are no longer in an advocacy. As you were saying. Mr. Litecoin Underground, you were saying we're no longer trying to get the U.S. dollar to be healthy. We're trying to compete. It's like an Olympic race. We don't want them to be carb loading or whatever, training really hard. We want to win now. So we don't want. I thought that was so weird when Senator Lummis or whatever said that. Although she's super nice.
I don't know what they're talking about. It through they're just saying stuff to get more people to vote for them, right?
Yep, that's the job, right?
Yeah.
Well, the buzz died down pretty quickly on that, so I think people recognize that doesn't make any sense. You can't be stateless, anti-state money, and then want the state to be involved. So, I'm looking at all these fees. You're right. This, Ethereum collects about 5.4 million a day. Bitcoin 2.3. Uniswap, Aave, in the millions. Maker 250,000. Kyberswap 230,000. The exchanges, that's where the people spend money. But anyway, and Litecoin, you want to know how much you think we collect a day in Litecoin, Animal?
In fees?
Yeah.
Probably somewhere between $1 and $50,000 US.
$880.
A little off.
Even with a couple 100,000 transactions, it's pretty surprising.
But anyway, I think the lesson is that you cannot chase the price up. I think you have to chase the volume. You just say, give more Litecoin transactions, and then they each pay 10 cents or whatever, and then So that's
I think that's been the plan. The Litecoin Foundation has been just about adoption, right? It's about growth, and that's one thing that if we look back, they've done really, really well. Litecoin's available everywhere. It's growing on every platform without, pretty organically. And I think it's because it has a recognizable name. People trust it, and they know that they can, wherever they are, if they find an ATM or something, they can make a change. They can spend it pretty much anywhere. So it gives people a lot of faith in it. And using that, I think that's where I like this drive chain idea. And honestly, I told Animal, I'm kind of, until somebody gives me a red flag that tells me this shouldn't happen for some technical reason that I probably don't understand right now. I think it's something I support, and I want to push it to keep the conversation going and maybe bring some of the negatives out of the woodwork, right? I would like to hear the challenges, and I was a little disappointed that we didn't get some other people in here to challenge it, but I think as a first step, this is a good way to understand it out of the gate, right?
Sorry, my internet I think cut out a little bit, but I think I heard mostly the challenges of drive chain, which we didn't discuss, I guess maybe, but I don't think there really are.
Would you be opposed to running it on Bell's coin first?
I don't I think anyone can run it on especially this CUSF thing, as long as they have this ZMQ block format. Anyone can activate it on anything tomorrow if they want. They need 51% hash rate, or it won't do anything. But
right. No, because I know they're speed running basically, 15 years of Bitcoin development right on Bell's coin right now. They're implementing Aux POW this month, and soon after
merge mining.
Soon after they're going to have SegWit, and then I think 6,000 blocks later they're going to implement Taproot. And so this has already been, programmed right into the latest version of their node software. And they seem keen on just moving quick. Like they've got more inscriptions on Bell's coin right now than on Bitcoin and Litecoin and Dogecoin, I think combined. I think they've got since December, essentially, they've been inscribing like mad. So this is a community that's really not afraid of breaking stuff, I guess, or because I'm of the mind, right, of seeing.
Are you saying Paul's software is going to break Bell's coin?
No, that's not what I meant to imply at all. But what I mean is that so these blockchains are kind of sacred, right? Like when it came to the inscription things, I wasn't super keen on the idea either of being allowing people to pollute or vandalize the blockchain, right, with nonsense. And maybe I'm a bit of a purist for that, but I still think that these things are going to be eternal. Litecoin, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, they're going to outlive all of us, and as such, these are things that we're going to pass down to our grandkids, right? And they should be treated with respect. So doing things to them, changing them at a fundamental level should be, we should consider all avenues, all aspects, and really do so sparingly almost, right? If, say, for example, if there is a need, right, to increase the block size, right, for the big blocks. And I do believe that Bitcoin did or does need to have bigger blocks, but the way it was, the way the fork happened with Bitcoin Cash was not the right way to go about it. I feel like we would have eventually come to that conclusion together as a species, as civilization. We would have unanimously at some point agreed, we would have had no choice but to face facts that bigger blocks are not evil, and that they could help us help take Bitcoin to the next level, right? So given that, and Bell's coin is just a kind of a baby, and it's not to say that it's to be respected any less in terms of its sacredness, but the spirit of the developers and of the community is one that they're more gung-ho. They want to try things, they want to experiment, they're on board with the inscriptions, they're doing merge mining, they want to throw everything about it. They want to create a chain, I think, that they can play with, that they can experiment with, right? And these guys, the guys that started it, like Luke Wright and Adam McBride, And they seem like they're open-minded when it comes to adding things on, bolting things on to their project. They don't take it that seriously. Is what I mean. There's a lot less.
Well, I agree with all that. I think in a way, I do think it's winner take all. So someone will win and take it all. Now, if you're like in 7,000th place, now you get real creative, right? Because you say, if I just do what everyone else is going to do, I'm going to end up finishing 7,000th, and so I don't want that. So certainly the cost benefit ratio for someone in 7,000th for any creative idea is a little bit different. I do think that ultimately, I do see it as kind of like a big. It's like a big race, so whoever trains the best is going to win, or even like a big naval battle, right? Like whoever has a battleship made out of steel and concrete and whatever, and they have giant guns that can hit people from far away, that person is going to win. But it is also, the network effect is very crucial element. So being in the lead gives you it's kind of like, many different cities. It's kind of like a civilization. You ever play that game where you can play the one city mode? Everyone only gets one city. So like big city gives you an advantage. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So I think these are all great comments. These are all perfectly true things.
Are you? Go ahead. Sorry, Dan.
But like if it works well on Bell's Coin, you gave me the okay. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
If it goes well on Bell's Coin, like I would see more of the Litecoin community wanting to adopt it. Before Bell's Coin overtakes us in market cap, right? Like, there's
the flip side of this is if too conservative, and then the entire situation, can flip around, because then maybe you get flipped or whatever. I'm not trying to say like you should do it or you shouldn't do it, or you should. I'm not trying to do like the hard sell, like the fear thing. But it's all of the caution comes with a price also, and so who knows? Like, it's just like it is what it is, right? Like it could be like in 6 months, it could be a very funny situation where we talk again and everyone's like, "Oh, Litecoin, if only we had added." I'm not trying to do the fear sell, really. I'm just trying to say that it's funny. You could be in a different situation where you say something like, we waited, and then who would have thought, the Bell coin was the #1 winning coin, and it's flipping everything. And yet Lightning, the only reason they did it is because of the, Litecoin Underground. That's possible.
I think it's interesting because, again, I don't see, the thing I'm not seeing is where there's what the danger is. Like, that's what I think there's.
Yeah, let me explain. I need to explain this part, that I think I was a little naive. I presented this idea, and I thought that everyone in Bitcoin was united around the best ideas and the meritocracy. But actually, there are many people who, I think people who had like invested in Lightning already, or they had invested in small blockism. So they would be then humiliated if there was any kind of, because Drivechains are not an L1 block size increase, but what they are is they do allow people to try the large block theory out on L2 chain. So if they then run the experiment and it succeeds, now it will humiliate all small blockers to some extent. So in that way, I do think the opposition to the idea in Bitcoin is irrational. I don't think you can, for start, you can, if you look at the way I engage with a lot of these people, you can tell that they don't actually have a reason. They just complain about random things, and then you try to nail one thing down. Like the whole reason I invented blind merge mining was because people said, "Oh, it would be too expensive for the miners to run the sidechain nodes." So I said, "Okay, they don't have to anymore." But the same people keep making the same complaint, and the whole thing is kind of silly, anyways, because the L2 nodes, there is no possible way that they could ever, like, even in a situation like with Solana, which is the worst offender of them all. That's like, they've gotten that down to like $16,000 a year. And that is the absolute worst case scenario. And you can see that what miners spend, certainly what Bitcoin miners spend in a year, is like billions of dollars, and they don't. $16,000 a year would be nothing. But also, it was never an issue because even if that were the case, the miners could share, they could pool together, and only the pool needs to run the full node. So the whole thing doesn't really make any sense, and I do think that actually a lot of it is just about Bitcoin Core developers don't want competition. They will be in a situation where
Well, see, let me handle real quick. So because something that's interesting to me is the privacy thing, right? Because we know right now, I think Monero is a very good example of it's a community that values their end-to-end privacy. They're not generally in it to speculate. The speculation has gotten pretty squeezed out of that just because you've got no exchanges that accept it, right? And so the idea that they could maybe do away with the extra coin, I think this maybe is Paul's point, is this is excessive mining. It's all this work going into maintaining a separate blockchain, that if they could get all those exact same capabilities by just using Litecoin XMR, then what and they have the ability to swap in and out of it to get to plain old Litecoin and use on chain, that seems like a lot more attractive for them than having to worry about this extra coin that maybe it succeeds, maybe it doesn't. It gets outlawed everywhere. It just becomes a nightmare to use, where it's harder to outlaw LTC, right?
Well, yeah, I do think when the interoperability is at the software layer, that does help, because now everyone has a pretext. They say, I don't want the privacy part. Everyone can say that, even though 10% of the people are lying. They say, I don't want this. I'm only downloading it for the whatever, DeFi part or the whatever part. And then the software will shift all the different coins around. So then that does give you an edge, I think, because I think the real privacy involves the story you tell when someone points a gun at your head and they say, what have you been up to? Real privacy involves this pretext. It says, oh, I was only downloading it for the JPEGs. But really you were buying whatever. You're buying stuff on Silk Road or whatever you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
With the Zcash sidechain. So we cloned Zcash already, yeah.
So is that running?
Yes, it is, yeah. Although there's currently a bug in it that I have to fix. But it should be easy to fix. But it stops if you sync the Zcash sidechain, it stops at a certain block height. I got to fix that bug.
No kidding. So this is already Drivechains are already a thing on Bitcoin.
Well, they don't. You cannot use the BTC on them until BIP300. The miners have no idea what's going on about any of this stuff. They don't know about any soft forks. The miners are very apathetic, with the exception of Luxor and a few other people. The mining pools are just run by these hired gun CEOs from the industry of lithium mining or whatever. They're not Bitcoiners, actually. So they don't really know about any of this at this particular moment, although there is a conference in November. I think it's called Op Next. That is a mining conference dedicated to the next soft fork. And I think it's in Boston. So I think this will all be revealed to them for the first time. Literally for the first time. They have no idea what's going on. I think they don't have any idea about any of this stuff. They don't know how BIP300 works. They don't know what BIP300 is, even though I've talked to some of them about it. I don't think they remember what was being said or why it's important to them, or how in the future 99% of their revenue will come from this merge mined sidechains, in my opinion. And the other L2s are trying to take this money away from them, but they don't. They are very, very confused and apathetic about this. So the miners are currently not doing it per se. But we have the testnet software that all works. So you can with fake coins, you can use the Zcash sidechain today if you want. You go layer2labs.com/download, and that connects you to our our test network is fake money. It's not real Bitcoin. But it is real fake Bitcoin.
You do need to have the test chain running.
Yeah, when you click on it, we have like a little faucet. You can just join our Telegram group and ask. We've got a bunch. We'll give them away for free. We do have a faucet too. I think it does it work? I think I tried to do faucet.drivechain.info. I thought they had it redirect. I think it redirects. Maybe not though. But we also have
Animal, because I want to ask the questions that came from Twitter, and I think we've gotten a lot, Paul. Honestly, it's I have a better understanding of it. It is a question: if we do it on Litecoin, does it quickly get looked at? I think the big difference is that when you mentioned this Bells coin thing, Animal, you're really not going to know if it works for quite an extended period of time. 13,000 blocks on Litecoin is a quarter as long as Bitcoin, so we're really only talking 4 weeks on Litecoin.
Right. Yeah, at the current constraints, yeah.
Instead of 3 months. And I don't know how fast Bells coin blocks are.
Of course, you can redo it so that it's however long you want.
Yeah, I mean, I know I don't want to say you came up with it arbitrarily, but
it's pretty arbitrary.
I always try to say that about things on Bitcoin. It's
just supposed to be like so long that no one would try. There's my point of view is there's a big difference between instant and like instant versus 2 minutes. There's a huge difference. And then 2 minutes versus a day is a huge difference. And then 1 day versus like 3 months is a huge difference. But other than that, there's not actually that much difference. Does that make any sense? Like if it's going to be fast,
4 days isn't that big a deal.
Yeah, exactly. If it's going to be fast, then it has to be instant. Otherwise, it's not fast. It's just annoying. It doesn't work. So then if it's not going to be instant, then it really doesn't matter if it takes an hour or 2 minutes or 4. These are all like the same category. So I was just like, whatever. It's not going to matter. People are going to be, in order for it to be long enough to have its real firepower, then it.
All right, we got a first question here.
All right.
Ben Mizlozic, who I believe is, hang on, let me just double check. He's the guy that makes the Locotech miners. You've seen those. They're basically, they fit in your graphics card slot, and they're extremely efficient, small-scale ASICs. All right, what are the arguments in favor of drive chains compared to the different, more decentralized method of atomic swaps, which preserves a project innovation, incentives, and sovereignty, especially when considering that new developers and entrepreneurs might lack direct incentives to support them unless they are already deeply invested in Bitcoin or they're large-scale miners?
Well, atomic swaps, that's like the fast lane of the withdrawal. I'm not sure if they're referring to the idea that someone should launch an altcoin, use atomic swaps that will not have the one-to-one peg. That would be the inflationary thing we discussed before. I'm not really sure I understood the question.
I think that's what he's getting at. And so take where we're at today with Litecoin and Dogecoin. Would it be better to encourage atomic swaps between these chains and let them operate independently? Let development be, let's have merge mined chains with atomic swaps as opposed to drive chains, and let the market decide.
Well, I think definitely could do both. Drive chain works better with atomic swaps encouraged, as I was trying to explain. So, because the atomic swaps are like the fast lane, and I would imagine almost all 99.9% of the withdrawals and the users would do the fast atomic swap way out. So I think the atomic swap doesn't have the one-to-one peg, and it doesn't have this infinite extensibility. But you have to keep.
You need an oracle.
When you don't have the one-to-one peg, you always need more altcoins to do the thing. So we already have that. So you know what I mean? Like that's not really helping Litecoin.
Even if that altcoin is a stable coin, you need some sort of frame of reference to value them against each other.
Yeah, when you swap something, you have the new thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the sidechain is like an ATM that converts your checking account balance into cash and then back.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is it's the same US dollar, but now it can take the form of either cash or a checking account. Checking account could be like Ethereum shaped. Cash could be like Zcash shaped. Check could be like regular Litecoin shaped or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of the sidechain idea. And the peg is like the ATM converting it all. The atomic swaps, that's more like saying, okay, we have like British pounds and US dollars, and then we can trade. But the whole point is to get rid of the whole point of sidechains is to get rid of the British pound.
Yeah, I think what he's asking, and I tend to agree with a bit, is that altcoins breed in inventiveness, innovation, and they allow people to monetize these ideas and get, granted, a lot of them are garbage, but that doesn't mean it's all of them, and so the ones that do maybe require some, development payment up front and all that, because they feel, so VCs will pay it, or whoever will pay, invest in this thing, whether it's even just speculators, they'll fund the startup of this stuff. There's some value in that, but I also don't think in your world altcoins are going away.
Well, one thing that would not go away is the fact that people would, like what you might call tokens, like people can still, even in a world where Litecoin has taken over the whole world and all the fiat currencies are dead, you would still have like a stock market with people would still start a new corporation, and they'd issue shares to people. They say you take 40% of the shares, you take 30% of the shares, you take the other 30%, So the idea that people could have representations of value, they could have tokens, they could have equity, could have stock, bond, whatever. That will never go away, I think. So that's a very useful and important thing. But I don't think that is the same thing as saying that what am I trying to say here? So like the innovation, the gentleman or whoever, they did mention that so like in Bitcoin in the early days, there was more of like a patronage model where like there were some super wealthy Bitcoiners and a lot of Bitcoin, and they would like fund things. I think that actually worked pretty well. I don't know about this stuff where the best way to fund a project is that it becomes attached to its own currency. Like you say, I'm going to start my own landscaping. I'm going to start my own lawn mowing company, and then I have Paul's lawn coin. I have my own banking currency system attached to my lawn mower business. I don't know. Like that doesn't sound like it's going to work to me. But
no, you're right. I mean, it's a decentralized way to raise money, I guess is the best way to put it. That you can.
Well, I'm saying you can still do that though.
From all over the world.
You understand? I'm saying you can still ICO or whatever. In the sidechain world, you can still ICO if you want.
But how would you do that? What are they going to buy into that and then hope to gain from if there's no?
There's a special sidechain that while it uses Bitcoin, or in your case Litecoin is the money. Litecoin pays all the transaction fees, but it has other assets on it. So you'd still have like basically ordinals or whatever. It'd be like the ordinals chain. We have one that's called Bit Assets. So you would still be able to do all that. And you just don't assert that any of these things are money. You just say these are not their own blockchain. They don't have their own fee. They don't have their own mining.
But how do you? This is the part that would it be possible for a drive chain to be spun up where the creators of that drive chain can siphon a percentage of the fees for themselves?
Yeah, but it is possible, but it's kind of unstable. But yeah, it's completely possible.
I just feel like you want to encourage people with a profit motive. I just feel like that. I understand there is a bit of altruism to it, but I also think that you get more development and interest if the people putting in the work feel like, hey, they're motivated to attract users and bring on new features and try to, again, outcompete anything else that's out there. Maybe there's two different marketplaces that are different drive chains that have different features. How do they stay incentivized to adapt and grow rather than just kind of borrow from other altcoins that get created and get popular? You can copy and paste, but then you're not going to innovate. You're just going to always be behind the times.
Yeah, but again, I disagree with this. I think Mark Andreessen is right, and Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel, they have a disagreement about this. Where Peter Thiel says, to innovate, you have to be a monopoly because you have to own the R&D like output. You're like Apple. You vertically integrate. You do the innovation, and then you capture it all. And if it's perfect competition, then Apple, you innovate, everyone copies you. You didn't make any money from innovation, so you stop innovating or you just go out of business. That's Peter Thiel's point of view. But I think he is not right. Mark Andreessen, I think, is right. But he said that thing about the motto of every monopoly is we don't care because we don't have to. And so the monopolies really are the ones who throttle the innovation, because innovation is not like it's not like building a tower where you put more effort and you made like the 15th floor, the 16th floor, the 17th floor. Innovation, you have a huge risk of failing, of people make fun of you. You might look weird. You're implicitly criticizing people. Every innovation is an implicit criticism. You say, like when Mr. Beast builds all those wells in Africa or whatever. He's showing up the local governments and all the aid workers, everyone, UNICEF, whatever. They're all being shown up by him. So innovation is like an inherently violent, and it's not like an additive thing. You know what I mean? Where you just say we need to add. We pour more gasoline into the engine, and the engine goes further. So it's kind of like what you're saying. We need more money. The more money we put in, the more innovation we get. The other thing is money is often an extremely distracting thing. This happened very frequently during the ICO era. People who do the innovation are not the ones who ICO. Other people steal the innovation and then they ICO. And so in that case, you might argue the first person should have ICO'd, but actually the first person might never have innovated in the first place if they thought, okay, the only way this idea will ever see the light of day is if I become an ICO person. They just think, you know what, I'm just not going to bother. And then they definitely don't want to innovate and then have someone else steal the idea in ICO. So the whole fact that money is being raised for ideas is actually deleting innovation. There's plenty of intrinsic motivation to innovate because you see something wrong with the world. What you really want to do is reduce the cost. This is what GitHub and open source does very well, where you reduce the cost of correcting the error to a very low amount, where all you have to do is go in, write the pull request. Sorry, I might knock my thing off. You go in and you write the pull request, and you say, this is what this does. This fixes this error. And then they click merge. I think that is a better way to promote innovation. The other way is, I think, very likely to have a chaotic side effects that are worth more trouble than
I wonder, like, functionally, it's funny because Animal and I talked to this guy who runs a business down when we were at the summit, and it kind of triggered my idea of, like, I started thinking I want to interview more businesses that are in the crypto space to understand why are they here, right? What's their business model beyond even just, we're a crypto company. Like, okay, how do you acquire customers? Just started, because I find it interesting. I find businesses interesting in general. And something that I've been kind of wondering a lot is, are there functions that blockchains can provide? Is there a functionality that some businesses or governments or whoever can use these blockchains for, and that there's a lot of value in the agnostic nature of blockchains, right? The truth machine, so to speak, that they're just not using today for some reason, that maybe, the cost or the capacity or the building on these things is just too difficult. And that could this enable something where, yes, you take the monetary speculation out of it, and that's a benefit to them. Or maybe even you have like a dollar-based drive chain, as crazy as this is, because because I would like to see companies use blockchains more, because I think there's a lot of value in this finality, instant settlement, this distributed ledger.
I do think there will be a Tether. I think there'll be USDT across all the chains probably, and I think there will be even like a synthetic dollar, which is basically like an asset where there's an oracle on the exchange rate, and as a result, it always leaves you with one person is always left with $20 worth of Bitcoin, so it's like a synthetic dollar. So I think those things will happen.
You anything else? I'm going to keep going. Twitter questions, unless you got.
Yeah.
I promise this. We've been almost 2 hours. So
yeah, we had to. Let's try to hit all the Twitter questions as quickly as possible.
Do these. Okay. Does OpCat allow for a better peg in and peg out? Can that be used?
I say no. I think. I don't think people understand why I made BIP300 the way that I did. So all the decisions have a purpose, and I think it's optimal the way it is. OpCat, this whole idea that it's the opcodes that enable the peg in, peg out, I think that is also completely false. It's really whether or not the miners understand why they are doing this. So the miners could do it with no opcodes. It would not be quite as good. But even with no opcodes at all, the miners could just have this drive chain idea. They could just do it out of their own self-interest. They could just say, we commit to this process because it will increase our transaction fee revenue. So the whole idea that the opcodes cause things, this is all a hang up from, it's very interesting. I've witnessed this firsthand. Like something will happen in a culture, and then everyone in the culture will start to think a certain way. And it's all, you can just trace it back to like one traumatic event, which in this case was the SegWit activation and the block size war, and just the fact that Lightning wouldn't work without SegWit, or it would work in a really, really terrible way. It would barely not work at all. So as a result, this created these assumptions that are unstated. They're in the subconscious, but about SegWit enables Lightning, BIP300 enables drive chains, OpCat and enables two-way peg. A lot of that is not. I personally don't even agree with that whole framework. Okay. So, but it's an interesting question. Yeah, so I say no.
Short answer, no. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through. We already covered drive chain versus extension block. If drive chains were implemented, how would you foresee the initial year playing out as far as attracting devs or building out the ecosystem?
I think acquiring users is way harder than the devs. Devs, you can freeload, just like with Zcash and Ethereum. We just copied the Ethereum full node or the Zcash full node from the altcoin world. We just copied it. So
is Layer 2 Lab instantly Litecoin developers if this happens?
The way that the sidechains work is the L2 chains can be used on any L1 that has BIP300 activated. So it's the same Zcash sidechain if it's on BTC or if it's on LTC. If it's on BTC, it will only credit people with coins when the Bitcoin network deposits BTC to that sidechain. And it will not see the Lightning network. Oh my God, I fucking did it again. It will not see the LTC network. It's funny because it's LTC. It's just so similar. But it will not see the LTC network, and it will not know about any deposits or withdrawals over there. So even though it's basically the exact same software, it will be, when it's run on BTC, having activated BIP300, it'll be a completely different network than when it's run on LTC. So that's why Layer 2 Labs is working on these L2 softwares, because the L2 softwares could be freely used on 1,000 chains. Like we could have 1,000 different L1s each download the Zcash sidechain, and then they would each have ZK Snark privacy as soon as they activate BIP300. So I hope that makes some sense. BIP300 is just this counter to 13,000. All the actual work is done on the L2 chains. And in contrast to the Lightning network, saying the right thing this time, Lightning Network, they're at the starting. If it's a race, they're at the starting line, and then they take off in 2015. But like the tortoise and the hare, they kind of get like lost along the way because they have to solve all these unsolvable problems. But with BIP 300, I really think it's quite different. It is just all the problems have to be solved first. When you launch the large block sidechain, which we already have, I call it Thunder as a little joke, but you'll see it. You can download it. It already exists. Once that activates, it's like you just teleport from the starting line to just the finish line. That's it. You now have planetary scale. So I think it's.
I have a question, and maybe you already answered it. I just can you have cross-chain drive chains? Can you have a drive chain that is both on Bitcoin and Litecoin? And depending on, I guess, a fee.
Not quite, because you can actually, but you have to. One of them always has to be dominant over the other, because the question is, what do you do if both of them reorg? Which reorg do you follow? So what you can do is you can say something like, this is a drive chain on BTC. So it's BTC L2. If BTC ever reorgs, then we go on that chain and we erase, because if the L1 reorgs, the L1 chain reorgs, then everything above it, the Lightning Network, everything, all drive chains, that also reorgs, right? So
reorgs happen pretty commonly, right? But there's like a limit to how many blocks that can happen after, like 6, I think, right?
This is a practice, but not in theory. So this is the key, which is that actually in practice there aren't really that many reorgs, and this is because the reorgs are handled so with such a finality that they are. It's because the network is robust to reorgs that no one tries. It's kind of like the 6 months thing. No one will try to steal, but it's only because there's a huge amount of engineering to handle the reorg. And if there is a 10,000 block reorg, it's certainly up in the air as to what would happen in that case, because the proof of work is very difficult. But I'm just saying, theoretically, what the drive chain will do is it needs to first find the L1 to figure out what's going on. For example, it needs to know, when was I activated in the first place? When was the first deposit to this chain? What are all the other deposits? So the drive chains rely on L1 in order to survive. If the L1 dies, then they die. If the L1 reorgs, then they reorg. So you cannot have it rely on two. But what you can do is you can say, drive chain is on one of the chains, so BTC, for example. And then the drive chain also asks for Litecoin block headers, and then you can do like a kind of SPV. You can say this deposit is buried by. You can say there's a certain type of transaction that's valid on this drive chain that says something like, if the Litecoin, this is in a Litecoin block, because you have all the Litecoin headers, and it is also buried by 20 Litecoin blocks or 100 Litecoin blocks or whatever, then that triggers something on the. Now, if Litecoin later reorgs, does a 100 block reorg, someone will get defrauded in that case. But I mean, you could set that value to something so high that it was like, if Litecoin had a reorg that big, then we would have bigger problems. And then you could just say, well, that would work. That would be a little slow because it would take maybe a day, but you actually can do that. And I think that would work. It would be slow, but again, as I say, my personal point of view with respect to the user experience is that, first of all, the non-custodial user experience really is better, because you can just get it down to like click a button in your house alone, and then that is better than like trying to like contact someone's server, and maybe they go out of business, and the wallet of Satoshi, they get pulled from the App Store or whatever. So actually, the long run, the non-custodial user experience is better. It's only because of Lightning Network sucking so much and the design being so terrible. This has tricked everyone into thinking custodial is better than non-custodial. But really, the custodial experience is wallet of Satoshi gets pulled from the App Store one day, and then everyone gets rugged or whatever. So the fact that it would take a day, I don't think is that bad, because you just say, you click the button before you go to sleep, and then, it's like torrenting in a movie in the old days, or so I read.
Okay, I got a lot of these questions. I want to run through these.
All right.
Let's try to make these really quick answers and see what we can do.
All right, let's do it.
How how dramatic do the chances of a 51% attack increase if drive chains are implemented, or is that overthinking it?
I say there's no marginal. What the miners can do is steal from the drive chain, but right now there is no drive chain. So you know what I mean? Like it's like there's nothing is happening right now. So
but it wouldn't change the main chain.
Right. It doesn't change anything about why you would have an incentive to attack the main chain.
Do you think, and I'm going to take this guy's question. He's saying, should drive chains restart the Litecoin as a testnet for Bitcoin conversation? Do you think if Litecoin adopts this, it makes it more or less likely that Bitcoin will adopt it?
Probably more, but not the testnet reason, because it's actually quite more like the US dollar versus BTC, because Litecoin is like a competitor, actually. They're all competitors, I think. And I think the fear cell would be every other coin is going to do this and will be left behind. So that would be and it also kind of just normalizes it a little bit more. So I think it increases the likelihood that BTC will activate it. I do think that BTC has been dragging their feet on activating it, and that will continue,
I just wonder if it actually hurts you, because I've felt that about MWeb. It's been weird. It's like there's such this stigma that look at Litecoin's price performance. It obviously doesn't mean anything. So who cares? Like if it doesn't pump price, who cares? That seems to be the mindset where there's no thought of like the future, right? There's no plan.
Well, I don't think MWeb is a super strong idea. I think it's a very interesting experiment, but the MWeb, like Mimblewimble does not necessarily increase privacy or scalability, because the transaction cut through, the adversary will just log all the transactions, so that defeats the privacy.
I think this is a whole different podcast to have.
Yeah, but like MWeb, so few people in the Bitcoin space know that MWeb was activated. Like it's just Litecoin is so under the radar.
I agree.
It's like I feel like the maxi narrative is really sucking all the oxygen out of the air, But
definitely your BitPay narrative, I think, cuts way back across that of saying, because I think a lot of the OG Bitcoiners remember BitPay. I remember in 2014 thinking, BitPay is like the most important Bitcoin company.
You were thinking
now you could buy. I was, because then I was like, now you could buy anything with Bitcoin. This is amazing, and it's a better deal, strictly better deal for the merchant. And
Lightning for a long time, right? They were layer 1 all the way. I think now they have Lightning as an option. I'm not sure, but
they do. Yeah.
Well, of course, this is part of the lore of the block size war, which is that when the blocks became full, the customer service complaints to BitPay and to Coinbase, they went up by like a factor of like 40 or 50. So there's like certain baseline amount of, how much calls they would get. And there was really no sympathy for this among I was really like kind of, I saw the merit of both. I was a small blocker, but I really tried to go all around and understand all the issues. And the small blockers really did not shed a tear over. BitPay was always complaining about like, this is killing our business. Like the customers are really unhappy when the blocks are full, because what happens when the blocks are full, people click the button, they broadcast the transaction. The poor user, they don't know anything about transaction fees or whatever, the block congestion. So what they see is that they sent the money, it leaves their wallet, but now it's not getting any confirmations. It doesn't even have one confirmation, and it's 20, 30 minutes go by, and they're trying to buy something online, and they're like, what, did I do it right? Did I do it wrong? What happened to my money? Did they just steal my money? So then they call customer service, and then everyone says, wait, and then maybe they wait 1 or 2 days, and nothing would happen. It would be the same situation. This is a horrible user experience. And even though I was a small blocker, I was like, okay, I understand why BitPay thinks that the small blockers are like completely fucking stupid, which is what they thought. And Lightning is also terrible. The Lightning is mostly a fraud. The fact that Lightning sometimes makes fast, cheap, instant payments, that is mostly a function of like lies about the custodial aspects of it and the and maybe good luck. Like, if you have a good LSP and you have a good route, then maybe that's fine for you because your channel has plenty of liquidity, but it's not really going to work for 8 billion people at all. So
from the Curious Canadian, how has he not lost his mind or sold out to scammers after a decade of effort for which he has so far failed to garner sufficiently broad support?
Yeah, we'll say like,
I mean, I don't see myself really as a victim at all because I was involved with Bitcoin in a very early way, and so I had a decent amount of let's call it financial return as a result of participating in Bitcoin for this so long. And so I think like that has been great. And I have been able to travel the world and talk about Bitcoin. And I have not really been working. This is not the only idea that I promote. I have come up with all kinds of great ideas that people have ignored, including or stolen, like the prediction market idea, which is fine, which is fully fine. But like that was my idea, the market scoring rules and stuff. That was all to do that on blockchain was all my idea. No one but Robin Hanson understood how those were. But I translated that into the blockchain world. So for Vitalik, like in 2013, 2014. So that later became like all this other stuff. I have come up with all kinds of ideas. And like I also came up with like fraud proofs on Bitcoin that people have completely ignored. Everyone still thinks that that's impossible, even though I demonstrated how to do it in 2016. Let me ask
you, so how long do you, because I mean, look, you do a lot of interviews. You're traveling, giving presentations. When is there an end in mind? Is there a limit to your? Do you say to yourself, "Look, if there
still is not an activation client." So I'll tell you that. What I thought was, it's a very long story as to like all the different twists and turns of what happened. But at first, I just threw this idea out there, and I thought this would be a good idea. This large and small blockers will both get what they want. Now, of course, since it was already very political, the large and small blockers didn't want the other side to get what they want. They just wanted to win. So that didn't really work. Then people were very interested in SegWit and Lightning Network. So I was just kind of like, whatever, they can just do that. I'm sure that'll probably be great. I was wrong about that. It was not great. It's a complete waste of time and big distraction. But then there was all this drama with SegWit activation. Then the large blockers split off. So again, part of my pitch, I was saying large blockers and small blockers can all get what they want. But now once the large blockers split off into Bitcoin Cash, now, that's like would have been all of my customers in the sense of BTC L1. Mm-hmm. All the people, those people are now gone. And also they don't care at all about. The last thing the Bitcoin Cash people would want is for BTC to suddenly add large block L2 drive chain. So there's like a lot of twists and turns and all kinds of crazy stuff has happened along the way. I did start this company, which is drive chain centric, in December of 2022. So we've been operating for only like a year and a half. I think we have outproduced every other Bitcoin company by like many orders of magnitude, even with our small team. The stuff that we have made is actually useful. And even though it does have bugs, and we do push to prod, and we do even push on Friday because I just YOLO it because we don't really have users. But it's like our stuff is better and is improving all the time. We do have planetary scale. There's currently no plan for that. There's just ARC, which is like giving up on Lightning and doing something else that's complicated. People are still chasing the same bad ideas that they can never get, like making sure that nothing ever affects, how can I phrase this? Like people still care about things like the unilateral exit. So people always want like some way of making sure that they have their money that is independent of what everyone else does, and which is fine. But the problem is they try to include the miners in that, which is a waste of time because it's not possible. So people have the same screwed up ideas they've had for a long time. How have I not gone insane? I mean, I think like the Bitcoin project has.
Maybe you have gone.
Maybe insane. I have, yeah. Maybe I am insane. I'm just in a room talking to no one.
None of us would know.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm saner. Maybe I'm triple sane, and everyone else is insane. The overall, the Bitcoin project has been a big success. So the fact, and like I have just learned more and more about why I was right over the last 10 years. So really, it's not like I have learned, oh, that what a big mistake. What I learned was that actually the Bitcoin project is sort of like hung up by terrible culture and like weird parasites. And once we're free of all that, it will be even 100 times bigger than people think it is now. Or something like Litecoin will just copy that exact playbook and succeed where BTC has decided. It made a conscious decision, with a lot of this like Michael Saylerism and stuff. This is a conscious decision to just like not pursue growth.
I have a genuine fear that the ETF in particular has created so many interested parties that have access to propaganda, access to resources that your average user they can't even comprehend, right? They don't even know they're being manipulated, and they're not interested in change and risk and self-sovereignty and self-custody. Like that doesn't help their business model at all. And I do think some changes, like I'm thankful MWeb got added to Litecoin before maybe we see it being in an ETF at some point. I still think we're a ways off on that, but this is the type of advancement that to me, does it get infinitely more difficult once you've moved into that world of white market, whatever, banks, BlackRock, whoever you want to say, Fidelity. Once you go into that, you're in a different ball game, and you're now a small fish in a big pond. And I don't think you're going to have as much luck getting things to change. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bitcoin can still change, but I think there's a lot of social pressure to prevent that moving forward at all.
There's a lot, like with Blockstream, right? Like you mentioned earlier with Adam Back, and how, well, I know I read the hijacking Bitcoin. There's a whole section devoted to what happened with, I think they had like investments from the Rothschilds and some other big banking cartels. Is that correct?
Well, it is, but that's not necessarily means that they would do whatever those people said. I think those people had unbelievable egos, and I don't think that they were about to be swayed by what I think actually happened with Hijacking Bitcoin is a great book, and when Steve and Roger were working on it, they sent me some copies, and I'm in the book, as you may have noticed. I'm in the book a few times. I couldn't have like the lightning part, and there's a Drivechain part also, but so I don't necessarily agree that it's very hard. The block size wars, I experienced it firsthand, 24/7, and so when people try to make a book, it's very, very compressed. My take on Blockstream is that they are more addled by the whole like academia thing, where they just thought they were super smart and they wanted everything to go through them because they were like, we will think about it and then we will decide, and then we're right. So anyone who opposes us is just wrong, and because we're the smartest. So to them, it was just like, we must guard the block size, and they just kind of never really revisited why the block size was there, which is this data availability thing that I think they still don't understand. I think Peter Todd definitely does not understand it. So like, because he thinks that like if there's an upward difficulty adjustment, that's like a block size increase. I'm not sure if he realizes that he thinks that, but he does. So like they just like had these like principles that they had deduced, and they kind of like never really tested them or revisited them. I think that actually there were two sides that were very well-meaning, and I do think that there were like agitators or people just like trying to cause division, and successfully they did. And all they need to do is amplify just a little bit of the toxicity on each side, and then people felt attacked personally, and then they retaliated, and it just became a kind of like a mess.
A pissing contest of sorts.
Yeah, it's like, imagine you have two groups and they're mostly friends, but they disagree on one thing. And then you go in, a wolf among sheep, and you you say like, oh, this person, like, this person said that you are terrible or whatever.
You're
And then the
stupid.
person's feelings are hurt. So then they say something and then you just go back and forth. And I think it's not that hard.
You know what the underlying thing that I've really hated about the crypto community in general is this, that if somebody doesn't agree with you, they're a scammer of some sort. It's like this questioning of morality as opposed to like just a difference of opinion. And that's where I think you see the division is like these small blockers. I mean, the way they talk about Roger to me is so crazy because I look at Roger when I first got on, I was like, he was one of the reasons I loved Bitcoin in the beginning. And I don't think that Roger has a scammy nature to him. He comes off.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I don't like to sit there.
No,
And
Roger
say,
is so nice. Roger's
like
a very, very, very nice person.
Well, yeah, like Charlie stole his coins, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, Charlie just dumped on the community." It's like that he's like this shitty guy. It's like, what? Are you crazy? Like he wasn't doing it to be anything but trying to do the right thing, and he's always tried to do the right thing. And so it's really that's what I think gets the reaction out of people and divides people is not talking. But okay,
there is certainly a shortage of trust. So, like, let me comment on Charlie selling his coins. Like, as if we're not all adults here and we don't know. Like, what if he had more coin? If he had bought more coins secretly, everyone would say, "Oh, look at the Gini coefficient of Litecoin. Like, it's unfair that someone has all the coins. One guy has all the coins." There's just no pleasing these people. You have to just kind of ignore these people. We're all adults here. We all understand the way, investing works. You agree, then you put up the cash and you buy. If you disagree, then you sell. Like, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff on Twitter is just a bunch of junk. Right. Money talks, bullshit walks, right?
I guess this is kind of a quick one. Who exactly do you want to talk to or have on board from Litecoin in order to implement this on Litecoin? And do you require any funding?
I think this is related to someone asked me something on Twitter, and I said I don't really want to take the lead on doing like a Litecoin proposal or grant or whatever.
Okay.
But I said I would partner with someone of sufficiently high status in the and I don't mean like super high status, but I just mean what I mean is I just want someone who actually understands the community better to manage the whole situation. And I said I will partner with that person and I don't think we particularly need any funding, although I think that funding definitely does help people pay more attention. I think it's not, I don't think my priority is just building these L2 chains. And if people understood better how the QSIF, CUSF, if they understood how that worked, they would see that. I mean, this may depend. So actually the question is, has Litecoin diverged significantly from the latest version of Bitcoin Core? And if it has, then maybe something else, maybe there has to be something kind of complicated done. But if it's mostly the same, if you still have this thing and if you have this ZMQ thing, then, and I had this in the slide, I said, this is all you need to do. If you do this, then they will activate on Litecoin. You just need 51%.
I think they're only a couple of versions behind.
So if the closer it is, the better, because I'm already proposing it activate on BTC via a separate piece of software that just talks to what would be Bitcoin D or what would be Litecoin D. And so it should work the same way if it's the same thing, or the modifications should be very small. Definitely someone who knows Rust and C++ would be good person to partner with.
Yeah, I don't know the developers' skill sets really, but I mean, there's not, there's, when I think of developers in Litecoin, I think mostly the foundation. And so to say that there couldn't be somebody else, it would be interesting to me to actually put out a bounty or something to find someone to help you support it that might be outside the Litecoin community today.
Anyone can post a bounty.
Yeah. So we could put something out there, and then that would be a good indicator. Like, are there people that are really interested in seeing this happen? So
I mean, at that point, the foundation would be forced to address it. right? They would have to either accept the bounty or not.
Yeah, and I don't think they're in the mood to politicize themselves. That's one thing I've really liked about them is if the community wants something, they're not trying to stand in the way. But they don't want to screw up the chain. So I think what I'm hoping, honestly, Paul, what I'd like to do is push to see something happen and get a reaction, hopefully. All right, last
get like
question.
a proper analysis, proper.
Yeah, Truth Coin. If BIP 300 launches and Bitcoin mining becomes centralized, could miners simply refuse to mine a certain side chain? For example, a side chain with Monero-like privacy. So yeah, again, like the government says, shut this down.
Well, the answer is yes, but I think it's unrelated to this decentralization. It's just they can, in my view, that's basically transaction censorship, if that makes sense. So it's like they're basically saying they're going to not collect any of the fees from the Monero sidechain, and they're not going to collect. They're just going to censor those transactions, basically. People can already do that. Of course, this causes a backlog of transaction fees that are just there to be collected by any miner who does want to mine all those. And I think this is related to the security budget question, which is that what is actually protecting the chain is this transaction fee revenue and this usage. So if there's only a few users of the Monero chain, then the miners don't lose a lot of money by neglecting or censoring them. But if it's the reverse and the miners like a huge 50% of the revenue comes from the Monero sidechain, and then someone comes along and says, we don't want you to mine that chain anymore. Now the miners say, okay, but you're basically just asking us to just shoot ourselves in the head. So they're going to like politely, that will be the thing that re-decentralizes the mining. You know what I mean? Like this mining centralized and you have like a mailing address and they have like a CEO, Foundry or whatever, they haul Foundry in. Then Foundry will say, tearfully, they'll say that we must stop mining the Monero sidechain. And then all the miners will say, okay, if I mine at Foundry, I'll get half the revenue, which is not enough to stay alive. Mm-hmm. And then they'll all leave. So that'll just torpedo that. So that nature will just heal itself. And
Foundry will just move physical locations.
Yeah, Foundry will come up with some other way because they'll think, I can't actually pull this off and survive, so I need to come up with something like Foundry has partnered with whatever, Somalia Mining, to outsource its block template construction or something. You know what I mean? They'll come up with this. And my point about all this is that the fuel that powers all of this creative activity is the transaction fees on the Monero chain. So it's if this money is coming in, this is just making sure that there is a path to collecting those fees, mining those. So this is the genius of Satoshi.
And your thought is
security budget model.
Sorry. This not only helps the fees long term, it really does help the asset itself as far as accruing more monetary value because you're actually getting more utility as opposed to pure speculation.
Yes, the actual usage is the key. So, Michael Saylor has this false view that we can only care about basically the stock price and we don't need to worry about the revenue or the earnings. So basically, he thinks that he has this thing that has 21 million units and it has property rights. But the only reason he has those things is because of the transaction fee model and the proof of work and all that other stuff. So if you lose all that stuff, then it will just become like a custodial database. There will not be any property rights. There will not be any proof of work. And there will be no inherent like limitation to 21 million coins because there's like nothing actually enforcing that now.
I mean, is MSTR, is that not an expansion of the money supply?
Although there's an interesting thing about MSTR is that he would prefer, he has like regulated corporate world. So he will suffer a lot if Bitcoin becomes too private or too subversive because he would be like the Foundry guy that gets hauled in front of Congress and says, you can't hold this asset anymore. And that would all, so now he doesn't really want the coin to become too strong because he's now in a tug of war game where the regulated regulated BTC is the only thing he can own through Master. He wants, I think, he wants to just have Mastercoin buy all this coin, and then he wants it for himself. But he won't be able to do that if it's too subversive or too illegal or whatever. Whereas if the illegal coin, the Zcash style, super private, super sovereign, like stakeholder capitalism, internet, decentralized, peer-to-peer, kumbaya, friendship for all coin. If that takes off, then it will look really stupid to be the guy who owns MSTR for the BTC, because you just say, I'll just own BTC in my own self-sovereign wallet. So there is a little bit of a conflict of interest there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, all right. This has been really good. I don't want to go any further. We've taken a ton of your time, Paul, and I appreciate it. I'm a supporter, yeah, maybe we can work on getting something to get this moving on Litecoin. And to me, I want to generate the pushback. I want to see where it is, and you can't expose those until you push forward a little bit. So, do you have anything else you want to finish off with, or your
well, I think we covered an awful lot. I think anyone who listens to this will have a lot to think about for a little while.
That's true.
So, yeah, go to drivechain.info if you want more info. There's lots of stuff there. There's presentations, there's YouTube stuff. Software is there. It's at layer2labs.com/downloads, but it's also at releases.drivechain.info. I think you can click download. It's like a download button somewhere.
All right, Paul. Well, thanks a lot. And I'm sure we'll be talking again, but we've got enough to digest for a while.
Cool. Great. Well, hey, nice talking to you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Likewise.
See you.
Bye.
Take care.
So, yeah, I don't know. What did you, I mean, that was a lot to cover. Did your opinion change? You still feel the way you felt coming into it?
I mean, ultimately, yeah, I don't see the need immediately for Litecoin to do anything, right? We're very comfortable. We have plenty of bandwidth still to process transactions. Fees are very low. It's fine. Bitcoin, on the other hand, does need a kick in the butt to do something. Mind you, with its massive market cap and its dogmatic narrative, maximalism, and not changing the code or whatever disagreements they have over Satoshi's original vision of the block size and whatnot, it's a super hard sell, even despite the fact that they need the help and it might be the perfect solution for them. So yeah, is Litecoin a good way to front run that and that as an experiment and to test it out to convince the Bitcoiners eventually when Lightning ultimately blows up in their faces? Yeah, I think so. But we're running into the same issue with Litecoin where, the market cap is fairly large and there's a lot of people invested in it and are hesitant to, change or to fix what isn't broken, essentially. Which is why I really am not opposed to the idea of testing it on bells first. It'll have the hash rate. It'll have, I guess it'll have it still has a market cap of like 12 million or 15 million or something. So there is stuff at stake. People can probably, test it and try to attack it. And there will be real money at stake. And once, it proves itself on that chain, it'll be much easier to sell it to Bitcoiners or Litecoiners even, right?
Yeah, I guess I look at that as, to me, Bells is so obscure. I mean, it's very, very, very obscure. It's not like it's, there's on 3 exchanges. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, when it gets merge mined, like I think we're going to see it everywhere. When every Litecoin, Dogecoin miner has exposure, they're going to want to probably offload it at the very least to to pay their bills. It's an extra $2 a day for something like that for like an L7 or an L9. L9s are not yet, are they? So L7. I think it's like when you're mining, it's like merge mining will be an extra $2 a day income for script miners, at least at today's difficulties.
Right.
Which is not nothing, per ASIC. So I think at the summit they were saying that, you know, a state of the art S21 Bitcoin miner generates something like $6 per day, whereas a script miner, an L7, or were they talking about the L9s? I forget. But either way, say an L9 because it's the latest and greatest, will generate $21 per day.
Right.
Add on top of that the $2 extra from Bell, so you're talking 23. Like, it's not an insignificant amount, even with its, you know, minuscule market cap of $12 million. Like, it's actually.
Yeah, I tend to think, to me, again, until I hear somebody tell me that this is this major danger, then I fail to see the risk. People can move because it's all voluntary, right? So if side chains, if there's hesitation from users to move their money over there, then that's a poorly designed side chain. Like, that's a different story. And I think that's
like, yeah, neither of us are qualified to answer those concerns, right? Which is why it would be cool to have someone from the foundation vet this and really think about it, you know, because right now we're just speculating, and you know, it's we've got Paul's word. Paul seems like a nice dude, and you know, I'm sure he wouldn't lie to us. So, but like, we're still taking his word for it because I'm not qualified personally to dive into the code and to analyze it, and you know, to scrutinize every single line, right?
Yeah, and I want to separate. That's what I told you a while ago. I want to separate between should we do it and can we do it, right? Those are two different conversations, and you and I might, like, in my opinion, as far as the should we, even though we might not have any glaring use cases right out of the gate, to me, I don't. If the could we part, if the can we safely do this is answered yes, then I think it's a no-brainer. I don't see why you would not want to open up literally that 20,000 different coins that exist, right? Let's look
all
at
the
the
extra bandwidth, scalability.
Take the top 100 protocols and go, okay, what do they have that's cool and useful? And, you know, looking at that cryptofees.info to see something like, you know, here Aave is fourth, and they collect $1 million in fees every day. And, you know, that's lending and borrowing. Can that be done? I don't know. I mean, that's a little bit of the, do you need an extra coin to do that? Do those fees get paid in Litecoin instead of Aave? Is there something with Aave that allows you that you need the token in order to create that liquidity? I don't know, right? There's a lot of questions on that end to be answered, but to look at a lot of chains that have over 10,000 in fees coming in, you know, far outpacing Litecoin, more developers, more variety of things you can do with your money, instead of having to always go, well, I want to buy this, but I got to go to this exchange to get this token, and then I'm going to move into this thing, and there's fees at every step of the way. Like, to remove all of that. I'm a utility guy. I'm a believer that you have to have a foundational need to use an asset for it to have real value, or otherwise you're just playing this speculation game forever. So yeah, the more use cases, the better. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And yeah, I mean, I think we're both looking for the same thing.
I agree with that, with your perspective, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, Bells, to me, it's like it's a half-assed solution that you're going to want to wait. Well, okay, how long do we want it to run on Bells before we feel comfortable with it anyway? If it runs for 6 months, if it runs for a year, are you like, okay, now I feel good? Like, is there a certain threshold of how much money needs to move on there before you start going, okay?
But so, like, we can also argue that even if we were to implement it on Litecoin right away, we have Omni Lite, right? On Litecoin, the whole Omni layer, it isn't being used, right? Like, so there's a chance that, like, we do deploy it, right, to Litecoin, and then people maybe play with some of the like Zcash coins or whatever, or Monero clones, but none of them really take off. Nobody really cares. It's possible that it just, like, at the same time can deploy it and nothing comes of it, right? Like, people just kind of forget about it. We don't have the users, right? And I think we don't have like the hype behind, like Litecoin has a narrative problem, and people don't give it the respect it deserves. The maxis don't give it the respect it deserves, right? Like they forget that Lightning was made possible because of Jack Mallers and Charlie Lee doing it first on Litecoin, right? So once people, I feel like, remember what the point of all this is, and like how to continue progressing forward, and bolstering the technology, it'll have more of a chance. And but we're just so focused right now on number go up, that people are just looking for projects that have upside potential. They're looking for like whoever Sequoia Capital's investing in, right?
Well, like Bell's Coin. Like what would Luke be doing if Bell's Coin didn't exist? Like what if that speculation goes away and he goes, well, I can do all the things I want to do. Like how much of his motive is to make Bell's Coin go up, and how much of is it to build something that's useful?
Yeah, I mean, so it's
that's
hard
what
say,
we're
like,
kind of getting into, right?
Yeah, right. Like, cause he must have mined for like at least a couple of days on his own with like maybe 3 or 4 other miners, right? So he has a decent exposure to Bell's Coin. I would guess that, like, I don't know, he was really into the NFT spaces on Ethereum, right? So yep. I think he's like, Luke's just, he spreads himself all over the place, and he's an ambitious dude with a good head on his shoulders. I like Luke a lot. We met him
I agree,
briefly at the summit, and seems like a really, really good guy. What would he be doing without Bell's Coin? I mean, probably something similar. He'd probably still be working on ordinals, maybe playing more with runes or recursive ordinals.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, to Paul's point, is like this energy that's diverted into these alt chains, where the way to make money there is, to pump up the chain, to find a way to get people to speculate. Is it better spent building something useful? And that, would he be instead just say, I'm just going to go on a side chain? And that's where the profit incentive, I still think, like, is always going to be out there, and things like Bell's Chain will always exist. I think it's just the idea that I can buy Litecoin and use it in a variety of different ways without having to worry about transferring to a different coin because it could go down in value, or that blockchain, I don't have as much security feeling it. Like, how long is that blockchain going to be mined, or is it staked, or whatever, right? Am I going to get rugged? To remove all that variable from it, I think will be appealing to people. But you're right. I mean, what happened instantly? Probably not, because the majority of the space is speculation. So,
and like a lot of cool stuff you want to build on it, like the title system, right? Like that takes a lot of lobbying. You got to get politicians involved. There's got to be some kind of a track record where you can see that there's evidence that this will work and there's no dangers. I mean, look, Bell's Coin is still very, very young. It's not listed anywhere. It's very hard to get your hands on some. A lot of that, I think Bell's Coin is going to be maturing quite quickly. I think by Christmas time this year, we'll see it on some major exchanges, maybe a Coinbase or Kraken or something. Certainly, I want to say Binance, they'll take it, but I mean, I feel like it's going to see a lot of growth just because of the attention that it's getting from the miners, right? From Bitmain specifically. Bitmain seems really keen on promoting it, and these guys, I feel like Bitmain's like kind of the king of the crypto space. Like they've been in it for so long. They've been mining for so long. They're the biggest players in the playground, right? Like they're the giant, for better, for worse, right? Like I feel like even Tether is not as influential as Bitmain is.
Well, we'll see. Here's the good news. Bells, if they want to do it, they can do it.
I mean, it'd be fun to have Luke or Adam, on to talk about it. I mean, they're very like they're in the middle. I think they're very busy these days working on it and getting it going. I think, you know, there's a lot happening this month, especially with the merge mining, the Ox POW being implemented. Or maybe they want to promote it. Maybe they will want to come on and talk about it. I think they definitely have a lot of knowledge to share, and their insights are super, super valuable. Yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to meet Adam, but I did see him and some of his videos at the summit, and I learned a lot about him. Super interesting guy.
Okay. All right. It's been long. It's been a long episode. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to edit this thing down a little bit, but I think we got a lot of really good information. So. All right. Yeah, I think we're good, man.
Awesome. This was fun, man.
If anybody else, yeah, I hope you enjoy it. We'll keep pushing and hopefully have some other episodes. I'll do an intro and outro later and all that stuff. So, all right, guys, have a good one. Take it easy, and I got to come up with a finishing tagline. Keep doing your thing. I don't know.
Keep hodling.
Stacking.
Keep
spend and replace. All right. See you later, man. I'm gonna end it. All right.
Cheers.